justice, education. We can't just, we have to keep in mind, we at first must ask the question, why are they selling drugs? We can't just, you looking at the effect of something that of a cause. Yes, just as the effect is real, the cause is just as real. So someone caused this effect that we see. So we must go to the root of it and ask, why is this young brother selling drugs? And instead of just locking him up, let's focus in on his need. And most of the time it's a lack of education. Because if one knows better, they'll do better. You can't give me an education that allows me to come work for you. I want to be independent just as you want to be independent. So don't, put me in here in your schools to give me a degree to get out to look to you for a job. So I'm still in the same predicament before I even started. So, no, we must be educated on how to make a business for ourselves. Now, all these in our community, all of these businesses, you got a lot of Latino businesses, you got a lot of Arab businesses, you got a lot of white businesses, you got a lot of Asian businesses that are surrounding our communities. See, and they are providing a need for us that we must provide for ourselves. But the thing about it is we lack the knowledge on how to provide these things for ourselves. So, and being frustrated with that, the first thing we do is pick up some drugs, and most of the time our older black women and the women who have children, tired of the senseless violence, we call for these draconian laws. We call for the enemy to open up the door, to throw the hammer at us, to throw the book at us. So, we're not even paying attention to what he's putting on paper. And then when our son get caught up in the drug war or so-called drug war, when our son get caught up in gang life, then when he goes before the judge, then we see the effect of the cause that we have called for. We have called for these draconian laws. So we must be mindful. It is just education. The scripture says, my people suffer for the lack of knowledge. Now, he didn't say the lack of degrees. He's not talking about that kind of knowledge. We must know the knowledge of self. We must know the knowledge of the time in which we live and what must be done. And when we come to that type of knowledge, then we can become more productive for ourselves, our families, and our community.
Yes, sir. And look, just to show how relevant what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, I'm going to read another point in what the Muslims want.
Yes, sir.
In regards to this very subject that we're dealing with, it again, this is 1965, 66, it's 2008. But on point number 5, he writes, we want freedom for all believers of Islam now held in federal prisons. We want freedom for all black men and women now under death sentence in innumerable prisons in the North as well as the South. We want every black man and woman to have the freedom to accept or reject being separated from the slave master's children and establish a land of their own. We know that the above plan for the solution of the black and white conflict is the best and only answer to the problem between two people.
Yes, sir. Now, how many of us are willing to accept, to separate from a mentality that preys on itself? How many of us are ready to separate from the drug culture, the drug war, the gang life, the drinking and the partying and acting a fool? How many of us are ready to accept, to separate from that type of mentality? As the scripture says, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. Don't be conformed to this world. And we're conformed to this world, see? So when the opportunity comes to separate from this world, from not we leaving out of America, this is the promised land that God has promised to our fathers. Our fathers have died and bled here in this country. We are not going nowhere. We are just as much owners of this land as anyone else. But when when we trying to separate from a mentality of death, see, slavery, suffering, and death, which we experience in our communities all of our lives. We experience slavery, suffering, and death. Debt is slavery. You got these mortgage loans, these bad mortgage loans that they done gave our people, and now that people losing their homes. So that we are in slavery to debt. So, And then we have just death all in our community. The foods we eat in our death.
Right.
The music we listening to, what is it about? Is it about uplifting the black woman? Is it about uplifting the black child? Is it about uniting black people together or even uniting people together?
Right.
No, it's about going down on some woman or shake your body this way, mama, or some kind of foolishness.
Right.
See, we are out of touch with the time. So now time demands that we have to and must separate. And if we don't want to separate, God is going to force us to separate. Now, you just look at what's happening in New York.
It's happening
You look at how the people are fed up with the things that are, with the way the police are killing our people in New York.
Right.
And this is going to keep and continue happening all over this country until the black man stand up and turn back to God.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Now, last piece we're going to deal with, and this is one that covering one of my favorite brothers in the news. Appears on page 24 of this edition of the Final Call newspaper. And the title reads, "The Right Motive for the Right Breakfast." And it is a column written by our guest columnist, Sister Dr. Barbara Reynolds. And it's dealing with her reasons for inviting the Reverend Dr. Jeremiah A. Wright to the National Press Club for a dinner with I think it was the NAACP, or a breakfast with the NAACP. What's interesting about this, just a little background, is Dr. Reynolds is a Clinton supporter, Hillary Clinton supporter. And so they're questioning her motives in inviting brother to this breakfast where he gave his, some very powerful speeches.
Yes, sir.
That were built on straight up truth. Because they were saying it was interfering with Barack Obama's campaign, and it was a diversion, and they were saying it made him slip in the polls, whatever. Right. But the question that I have for you is, why is it that our black leaders have to justify inviting one of their own to one of our events?
Yes, sir. In the Bible, when Moses went and challenged Pharaoh, Jehovah sent him and his brother Aaron to tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go." And Jehovah gave them many signs to, present to Pharaoh. And when Pharaoh saw this, he said, hold him and his brother right here. Go into the cities and summon our magicians and our, all of those who have an ear for the people.
Right.
Bring them unto me.
Right.
And then he promised them. He said, I will make you to be nearness to myself. That's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to let you become close to me.
Right.
So, the slave master's always promising, us to give us some kind of fried chicken and a biscuit, some token Negro, so truth don't need to be defended.
Right.
We don't know what God put in the heart of our brother Jeremiah Wright at the time that he did it, but we focus more on what damage it would do to Barack Obama versus what the man was saying.
Right.
And so anytime you stand for the truth, it don't matter. See, and this is particularly for our Christian brothers and sisters, Jesus said they will hate you.
Right.
Me, they hated first, but they will hate you.
Right.
You will be persecuted. You will be delivered up unto secret councils, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake.
Right.
So what is he talking about? You can say the name Jesus all day long. You won't be hated for that.
Right.
But the minute you start walking as the master walked, speaking truth to power, then you will be hated. And all those who were gathered around you will run away from you.
Yes,
just as Peter, I believe, did when the master went to the cross. Jesus, I don't even know the man. So when our leaders become controversial, those who would take a bold stand for us, then those around them run away from them.
Right.
Perfect example with our brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., when he stood and he fought the government, the government against the war.
Right.
Many black preachers turned against him, didn't want him to speak in their congregation. Many of those who walked with Dr. King ran from him because he was taking a bold